Welcome back to Wellness with Delaney. Today I'm with Megan McCue, and she has a really incredible story with her experience with Botox, getting botulism, and just the journey that Botox has taken her on from being somebody who uses it to somebody who actively advocates against it. If you are somebody who has been considering injectables, really make sure you listen today because this might change your mind and this might just lead you down a completely different holistic path. Megan, thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm really excited to dig into your story. I've been following you for a while and just kind of getting tidbits of your journey. And so let's just start with like what happened? What's your story?
Yeah, so I'm probably like a lot of your listeners. I'm a mom, a suburban mom in my mid 30s, and last year, I was done having kids and I just wanted to do a little something for myself. You start to kind of see the lines crop up on your face. And, I had friends who had tried Botox. My own sister had been doing it, but I had actually never done it. I tried it for the first time last summer. So about 13 months ago, 14 months ago. And I went to a doctor I really trusted. I had been seeing her for a couple years for another aesthetic procedure called microneedling that you've probably heard of,
Hmm.
which I'm a huge advocate for. That's a great, very low toxic way to just kind of boost your own collagen.
Oh yeah, I
So
love it.
so I really trusted this doctor. She had been injecting herself with Botox for years, patients for years, totally qualified medical doctor. And I said, you know what? I just want to try the smallest amount of Botox. Like, I think I'm ready. I had kind of asked around in my social circle, did you guys have side effects? I had my reservations because I am a very holistically minded person. I eat all the organic food. I filter my water. I ground in nature, red light therapy. It's like I do all the things. I check all the boxes. I'm very much like a carnivore mostly in my diet. So we share that in common. and, even so, I fell for the Botox lie because it's so tempting. It's like,
Hmm.
what? You can freeze your wrinkles without any consequences. So I decided to get the tiniest amount in my crow's feet. I smile a lot. I laugh a lot. So these are, where most of my lines are. And I literally got 6 units on each side, which is a pretty small amount. It's about a third the amount that someone might be getting normally. And that's because I only had it done on my eyes. And within seconds of being injected, I started having weird brain sensations, like neurological symptoms. The room kind of started spinning a little bit. I remember sitting there and I couldn't concentrate on anything. I had a lot of head pressure. And then I just started having like a weird brain fog, like to where I couldn't really concentrate or think as clearly. And I said something right away to the doctor. I was like, whoa, I don't feel right. Is this normal? Like, my first time. I don't
Yeah,
know
so
what's
this is
going
your
on.
first time. There's not even like a build up. This is the
No,
first
this
time.
is like bam, poisoned.
Wow.
So she just brushes me off. She says, "Oh, you're an anxious person. Go home." She doesn't know me. She just didn't know what to say. So I tried to go to work that day, and I only got through one patient. I'm actually a speech language pathologist, and I work with people who have difficulty swallowing and speaking, which is going to become relevant later when I go into what side effects I had. But tried to go to work. I couldn't concentrate. I started having these weird kind of fight or flight type symptoms, which were really scary to me because I'd never felt that way unless I was in a true situation where I was in fight or flight, like being cut off on the freeway. That's what it started to feel like. And I go home and I start getting really dizzy and nauseous. And I call the doctor back like 2 hours later and I was like, I feel awful. Like I feel like I'm coming down with COVID, brain fog, fatigue, all these things. I had like 5 different symptoms. I wrote them all down in my phone actually at the time. And she just again brushes me off. You're anxious. It's your first time. You'll be fine. Well, within the next couple days, I started developing more and more symptoms, and these really unfolded over the course of a couple weeks to the point where I was on a flight home with my family when my swallowing muscles started basically stopping. Like
Wow.
they would kind of go in and out. So I'd go to absentmindedly like swallow saliva and just everything would freeze and nothing would go. And that was really scary and alarming. I started having panic attacks all the time, which I had never experienced before. This isn't like a recurring thing for me, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, my heart's racing, my arms are going numb, my brain feels like I'm in a fog all the time. And at this time I'm thinking like, okay, what happened to my life? Because nothing has been the same since the Botox. But I didn't understand what my symptoms were. Because you go online, you search like, what's botulism? And it's like, oh, you're dying. You're on death's
Mm-hmm.
doorstep. Like you can't move your muscles at all. And that's not what I experienced. I experienced something that's called mild botulism. And it's what happens most often when people are getting these Botox, what they call toxin spread. When the toxin actually gets, moves from the intended injection site, either into your bloodstream or more scary, into your brain. And both of those happened to me. And I can talk a little bit about how Botox can spread, but I also know that I talk a lot. So let me pause if you have any questions.
No, yeah, keep going.
Okay.
I'm invested. I'm like, I'm in
Okay,
this.
you're
Yeah.
ready for this. So, I ended up finding out all of this information basically in the 2 months since I was injected, because I'm like Googling stuff, but also trying not to Google stuff because it's scary and it's telling me that,
Mhm.
oh, you would be dying if you had Botox toxin spread. So finally, my primary care doctor believed me. So I go in for a swallow test because at this point, I could only swallow liquids. My swallowing muscles would freeze up with solid food. Nothing, everything would get stuck right here. It was really scary. I, of course, am the professional that people go to when they have swallowing issues.
Yeah.
So that was kind of ironic. And so I go to this hospital that I work for, and I'm literally with one of my peers, and she does my swallow test, which is an x-ray where we watch the food go down. And we could both clearly see that like food was not going down in a normal, fast way. Like I almost looked like an 85-year-old on the x-ray, like just very slow, very what we call delayed swallow. And a lot of this had to do with the fact that I was hardly making any saliva at this point. I had an incredibly dry mouth. So we're both looking at this. I'd been to the ER multiple times at this point, and she goes, oh yeah, you definitely like have stasis, which is where the food is not going down properly. It's getting stuck. But you've probably always had this, and you just seem really anxious. And yes, I did seem really anxious because my entire vagus nerve and autonomic nervous system had been completely disrupted by this
Hmm.
toxin. I was in this state of severe anxiety for weeks, really. And it wasn't something I could like breathe my way out of, like
Yeah.
normally you'd be able to calm your vagus nerve and, doing exercises. I mean, I was the girl that went to yoga every week, right? Like I am
Mhm.
not this frantic, anxious person, but I became that when I had this toxin
Mm.
spread happen to me.
And that's important because I think that how many times do women go to a doctor's for any diagnosis and they're told it's just like, oh, you're a bored housewife, you're anxious, you're depressed. And it's
Mhm.
like, okay, so what if I am anxious because of a physiological issue? Because like I think that
Right.
people forget the nervous system is just as much physical as it is mental. And it's important to know like, what if there's something wrong going on neurologically? What if it's not just like bored housewife anxiety? You know what I mean?
I have no doubt that there are so many mental health issues happening from Botox. And the reason I say that and can confidently say that is because I had never experienced true depression in my life. And Delaney, I lost a baby. Like I had a pretty late stillborn. Um, Never depressed. I mean, I'm always like the cup half full kind of gal. And after I had toxin spread, because what happens when the toxin gets into your brain is it absolutely can block. So it blocks. Let me do the science explanation for people, and I'll try to keep it as layman's terms as possible. But basically, when the toxin gets into your bloodstream, it can travel to your brain. And once it's there, it can block so much more than just acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is that neurotransmitter that it blocks when it's in our, in our skin, in our forehead. It blocks the muscles from moving. That's why people use Botox, right, to paralyze the muscles because it blocks acetylcholine. And acetylcholine is a type of neurotransmitter, and neurotransmitter is just a fancy term for like a chemical message that your nerves those little cells that make up your nervous system, that those send either to other nerves or to muscles. So once the toxin gets into your brain, which it can in two ways, actually. With me, it probably got in there via the bloodstream, just up through the brainstem. But it can also get into the brain by hopping back along the nerve cells from the site of injection. And they've proven this on MRI, by the way. Like Allergan, the makers of Botox, know about this now, and they can't deny it anymore.
And it's still
Um,
FDA cleared.
Yes.
That's what's
I mean,
crazy.
and that happened a long time ago. It's unlikely that this would have ever been FDA cleared these days. But, this was before we had the technology to understand what's happening with this drug. The worlds of like microbiology don't always speak with the world of like the pharmaceutical industry if they're not being funded by them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like the microbiologist will find out one thing about botulinum toxin. Oh, it can cause dementia symptoms by this exact mechanism. But Allergan and, the pharmaceutical company doesn't care about that. They don't want to know about that. So where I was going with the mental health stuff, though, is just that this toxin can block dopamine. It can block serotonin. It can block GABA, which is the main neurotransmitter that calms the body and brain down. I and tens of thousands of others who have been through this experience extreme fight or flight and anxiety. And there are a lot of people that will tell you, I follow a lot of big influencers who used to do Botox and don't anymore. And they say, my anxiety went away. My depression went away when I
Wow.
stopped taking this neurotoxin, because it is so lethal and it is so powerful that even the smallest amounts, if the smallest amounts get into the brain, they can absolutely block these neurotransmitters from communicating for months at a time. I mean, there are some people who suffer permanent damage, like if they get enough toxin spread, or if they don't put two and two together, right? And they keep
Yeah.
going back, which is absolutely what's happening, Delaney. Like there is no doubt in my mind that so
Oh
many
yeah.
mental health issues. I mean, it's not always Botox, right? There's plenty of toxins in this world, but let me tell you, this is one of the most potent and like poisonous and powerful. And no one is being told all of the possible side effects. So
Mm-hmm.
why would you correlate your hair loss? Like what happened to me? I had severe hair loss. I had extreme brain fog, fatigue. Why would you correlate these back to Botox if you've never been told that these are all possible after Botox? And let's say you've been getting it for like 10 years and you don't have any symptoms at first, but then bam, one day your toxin spreads a little bit and you start getting these symptoms slowly over time. People aren't putting two and two together. And in a lot of ways, I was lucky that it happened to me on my first time, because my life was normal. And then one day it wasn't. And
Wow.
there was no guessing. Like at first, I really didn't understand what was happening. But once I started putting the puzzle pieces together by like digging into these clinical trials of this drug, meeting all these other men and women, literally reading through thousands of stories on these huge support groups. If your audience, anyone listening out there, is doing Botox, I urge you to join these Botox side effect support groups on Facebook. I am telling you, you're going to see the living nightmare that people go through after their toxin spreads, and you will never take the risk again.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know women, I mean, we're talking 24 units, and their lives have been destroyed for the past 2.5 years. They can't take care of their children. They can't work anymore. They can barely go to Target because they are so debilitated from fatigue and a lot of these secondary medical conditions that can come after. Basically it's botulism, but they call it iatrogenic botulism because it's caused by the doctor, caused by the pharmaceutical. Um,
Wow.
yeah, it's a real, and my life was a nightmare, and I'm far enough out from it now to where I can really talk about it openly. But let me tell you that those first 6 months, I would give up anything to go back in time and have never had the Botox, because I lived through hell. It was the scariest thing ever to wake up to this body that wasn't functioning properly. My swallow wasn't working. I wasn't making saliva, extreme brain fog. I couldn't work. I couldn't take care of my children. I was on the couch pretty much the whole day. I'd have a little bit of energy in the morning for like 2 hours, and then I was back in bed. I mean, it's just scary stuff. I had this awful ear nerve damage where my ears constantly felt full, like I was getting off of an airplane.
Wow.
You don't think of that as a big deal, but let me tell you, when you're trying to live your life and you have that 24/7 and you're having to go like this, I plugged my nose and blew out my ears just so that people know who are listening. I mean, it is incredibly distracting. It's annoying, and it prevented me from really being present. I was not present in my life for months. I mean, this toxin stole so much from me, and I had a very mild case, by the way. So many others have suffered so much more. So if you want the real truth about this stuff, you need to go into those groups where people are just frantic. And I actually run one of these groups now, and it's public. So if people look it up, they can just see, like, guys, I'm at the hospital right now. No doctors believe me. My muscles are getting progressively weaker. I can barely move my arms. I'm having relentless nerve pain. I'm dizzy. I can barely stand up or walk. I mean, just nightmares, living nightmares. And no doctor believes us because our symptoms don't show up on the objective testing. And that's one of the hardest parts about this illness, and trying to educate the medical community about it. Because, of course, being a speech therapist, I had to go and write 3 books about it. After it happened to me, I was like, that's it. There were no books about this. I was like, how is no one written about this yet?
Right.
Like, this has happened to so many people. And so my 3rd book, so I wrote a short memoir, and then I wrote a history of Botox and its adverse effects. And then my 3rd book is actually, it's Iatrogenic Botulism 101. And the goal was that I could teach my fellow medical professionals about this illness, because it doesn't show up on testing. It is really more an illness where you rule out other things, right?
Wow.
You rule out Lyme disease, you rule out stroke, you rule out, Guillain-Barré, all these other things that can have somewhat similar characteristics. But, ultimately it comes down to timing. When did the symptoms start, and when did you get your injections? Because those 2 events are going to be very close together.
Yeah, and I've even heard, like, for some women, they get it for years and they're fine, and suddenly their toxic bucket is just overflowed, and then boom, Hashimoto's, or like boom, something happens, and then they don't equate it to Botox. So like, I've been getting it for 10 years. I'm fine.
Right.
But I always like to think we all have this toxic bucket, right? Some of us have a small bucket, some of us have a big bucket, and there's so many factors to that. But at some point, it always will overflow if we don't stop just toxifying ourselves.
Well, and we've normalized illness in our culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people get Hashimoto's and they say, oh, well, everyone has that, or lots of people have that. They don't. It should not be normal for your thyroid to not work properly. And you're absolutely right that thyroids go crazy with Botox. So my thyroid had been the same numbers my whole life. I mean, since I started getting it tested probably 10 years ago. And 2 months after I got Botox, boom, my numbers, my TSH went down like a full point. It was just crazy. It did recover eventually, because I stopped doing Botox, right? Imagine if I had never put 2 and 2 together and kept going back.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have suffered so bad. But thankfully, I found these support groups. I found all these people that this had happened to. I started doing my own research. If you just go to Google Scholar and type in iatrogenic botulism, you're going to find plenty of papers. I mean, we need more research, but there are plenty of things. People can go to my website too, iatrogenicbotulism.com. It's a mouthful, so we'll put it in the show notes.
Perfect.
But, and I have a whole research hub on there where people can just look through. I've accumulated a list of a bunch of different articles that people can show to friends who might be doing Botox. It's like, don't take my word for it. Like, go read the medical literature, because that's where you're going to see the real nightmare of what can happen.
Yeah.
And every injection is Russian roulette, every single one. It does not matter how qualified your plastic surgeon is. It does not matter how many units you get. I had 12 units once. Like, this toxin has a mind of its own. People get toxin spread from top neurologists in the country. The lady who sued Botox in 2010, she was injected by an allergen trainer, someone who worked for Botox doing injections,
Wow.
and she suffered severe botulism. And she did win that lawsuit, by the way,
Wow.
which was really great. Yeah, because they were able to prove that without a doubt it was the Botox that had caused her botulism.
This is
So
important too because I think that some people are going to hear this and be like, well, yeah, just don't go to like a back alley, like random Botox med spa situation. But it's not just who's injecting it, it's the actual toxin itself. And I think that in itself is so important for people to realize because sometimes people will equate the side effects to where you're going, whether it's your breast implants, your filler, your Botox, whatever it is, but it can be the substance itself. So, what even for the people who don't know, what is botulinum toxin?
yeah, we should start at the basics, huh? I've been in this world for so long that I'm like, oh, everyone knows this stuff. No. So it is a toxin that is produced, by a bacteria, Clostridium botulinum, and it is actually the most lethal toxin on the planet. So 1 gram of it, if it was aerosolized, could kill 1 million people, over 1 million people. And that's why our military loved this toxin. It used to grow, it used to happen in canned foods when
Mm-hmm.
they were improperly canned back in the day. And our military was very interested in this toxin back in the 20s, 30s, 40s because it was so deadly. And they were actually trying to figure out how to aerosolize it. They eventually disbanded that offensive biological warfare unit in the 70s under President Nixon. And when they did that, the one guy who was working on it, so his name was Edward Shantz, he actually stole a little vial of this toxin back to Wisconsin with him. And he started because he wanted to experiment with it for medical purposes, because how the toxin works is it, like I mentioned earlier, blocks neurotransmitter communication at the nerve synapse. So he wanted to see if it could help with muscle spasms, because in muscle spasms there's like too many neurotransmitters being communicated, right? And it's causing, like, one of the first things they used it on was blepharospasm, which is like a spasm of the eyelid. They also used it on cervical dystonia, like neck spasms or spasticity in the neck. And so he wanted to see if it could help these medical conditions. And of course it does. It does help medical conditions because it works. It paralyzes muscles. It weakens muscles.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that if and when it spreads, which it has been doing for over 30 years, they, in the original drug trials that were done under Alan Scott, who was an ophthalmologist who was using it for eye spasms or lazy eye, strabismus, he was showing that the toxin could spread into adjacent muscles. And, he didn't care or didn't do anything about it. Not enough people reported side effects, apparently. Who knows? This was back in the 70s and there just wasn't good documentation. What we do know is that nowadays, when you go in and read the package insert for drugs like Botox or Xeomin, that's actually the brand I had, by the way, Xeomin, same toxin. But when you go in and read their clinical trials, you're going to see that up to 5% of clinical trial participants are experiencing botulism symptoms, toxin spread
Wow.
symptoms, dry mouth. Why would someone have dry mouth who's injected around the eyes? Because it's spread.
Yeah.
Like, it's spread either into the salivary glands down here, or it's spread into the bloodstream and got into the vagus nerve, autonomic nervous system. This is where the toxin loves to go, because when we think about foodborne botulism, when you're eating the toxin back in the day, it would go down into the gut, and that's how it would get into the bloodstream. And most often it gets taken up into that vagus nerve and autonomic nervous system first, because the vagus nerve starts in the brainstem, all the way down to our gut, right? So it's innervating so many things: our swallowing muscles, our breathing muscles, our digestive system, our heart, our lungs. I mean, all of these critical organs and processes in our body. It's such an important nerve, and it's one of the ones that the toxin loves to attack. And so many of us end up with severe vagus nerve disruption. In foodborne days, they would mostly get severe botulism because they would be eating large amounts of the toxin, and most people would die of either respiratory failure, right? Their diaphragm would just stop moving. That's the muscle that keeps your lungs, inhaling, exhaling. Or they would have cardiac arrest. So the heart muscle would stop. Yeah. And usually those deaths happened within 2 weeks, at the most like 3 weeks. And people can read a book called Recognizing Botulism if they're interested in hearing more about foodborne botulism. I was reading this book. It basically takes case studies of foodborne botulism from the early 1900s and accumulates them all. I was reading through these stories and I was like, oh, I had that symptom. Oh, I had that symptom. Oh, I had that symptom. Like, I had the same symptoms that these like teenage girls in the early 1900s who ate a bad can of green beans had after I had Botox. Like, that's how crazy it was. I was just like, oh my God, these are botulism symptoms. They're not calling it that, of course. Allergan's calling it, side effects and toxin spread. And no, it's direct effects of the toxin. This is what the toxin was built to do, is disrupt our nervous systems. And, the pharmaceutical story is just fascinating. People can read more about it in my book, No Tox, because I do go through just briefly like the history of how it even came to market, which, like we said earlier, we're not sure it would pass today, but you never know. The FDA is pretty corrupt. So
for sure. This is crazy to me that it started as like a foodborne illness, turned military weapon almost, turned medicine, turned cosmetic treatment. Like, the pipeline from foodborne illness to cosmetic treatment is kind of blowing my mind here.
Yeah. I mean, it is. It's a really interesting story too. And, everything you read, because I had to, of course, read a lot about the history of this while I was writing my book. And everything you read about it spins it in such a positive light, right? Like, oh, this is so cool. We're able to take this toxin that's totally lethal and make it not lethal at all. It's like,
that doesn't give me any peace of mind. Gives me zero peace of mind. Oh my gosh. Okay, so take me back to after you got like your x-ray for your swallowing, right?
Yeah.
Then what happened? Like, how did you put 2 and 2 together? Like, were there more things that like started cascading before you figured out it was Botox?
So I would say the swallowing and dry mouth were the worst that it got. And after my swallow test is really when I went home and I was like, Megan, you need to look into this now. Like, you've been avoiding Google. You've been trying to pretend it's something else. It's Botox. Go look into this now. And that's when I found the clinical trials. That's when I found articles on Google Scholar about iatrogenic botulism, saw all of my symptoms. And then I joined a support group. And that's when my mind was really blown, because I was reading my same story with different names, with different faces, over and over. The gaslighting. My symptoms started day of injections, dizziness. It was like I was just reliving the trauma all over again, with everything. And I cried. I was just like, oh my God, this is what has been happening to me. And it has happened to other people. And we are all not being taken seriously. We're being told it's in our heads. There's no answers, right? There's no cure. There is one treatment for toxin spread called anti-toxin, and it's not, first of all, the CDC will not even give it out unless you're on death's doorstep. And they make that clear. That's what they tell the doctors at the hospital. They say, sorry, we don't get it out unless someone's paralyzed. Well, there's about 100 other things that can go wrong before you get to that point, right? Like, as in the case of me, can't swallow properly. Like, I know women who are on feeding tubes and have been for years from Botox.
Wow.
Women whose throats completely went numb. So when botulism is left untreated, as it often is when it happens from Botox with all of us, we're talking about years worth of recovery. And that's really hard to tell people who are like 12 weeks out, right? Because those
Right.
are often when people join the support groups. And, it's like I want to stress to people that this isn't happening to, that this can steal years of your life, years of your life. Like it can cause permanent damage too. And that's the thing that no one likes to hear. But, people will develop these secondary conditions like MCAS, POTS, all of these different Lyme. Some people have had recurrence of Lyme disease because their immune systems just get so shot. But what I want to say about my story is that I was lucky, Delaney. I was the healthy girl. I didn't have any conditions going into this, medical conditions. I only had 12 units, and I swear to God, that's what saved me from a worse disease course. I think that's one of the few things that saved me.
Yeah.
Probably the only thing that saved me, that and my health going into it. But I've known women who were perfectly healthy going in and still get years worth of recovery, or still go through years worth of recovery. So I figured it out. I'm not dumb. I was like, I know my life hasn't been the same since Botox.
Right. It's like feminine intuition, Like I love
Yes.
that meme that'll be like my source, it was revealed to me on my walk, or like my source, feminine intuition. I'm like, there is a level, like what's going on in your body. And especially if you're somebody who's already in tune,
Yes.
I think that, yeah, it's
I'm
powerful.
the woman who has home births. Okay. Like,
Yeah. Like
I
I know
know
what's
my
going on.
body.
You
Yes.
outsource everything to a doctor. And I think that's a key distinction here. There are people who really do outsource everything to their physician,
Yeah.
and I don't really think that's my audience typically tends to be people who are more curious and more like digging into their own health, which is what I try to
Yeah.
encourage. So I think the more you do that, the more you know when something's wrong, and the source, because your body literally tells you. At what point in your healing journey did you start to share about this publicly?
I was probably 6 months out. I was about 5 months out when I wrote my very short memoir of the first 5 months. Maybe I'll do a part 2 someday because I kind of leave you guys hanging, because at that point I hadn't fully healed.
Mm.
And then I started getting more active on Instagram. I used to have an Instagram just to document my gray hair grow out because I love my silvers.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I stopped dyeing my hair a few years ago, and that was why I had Instagram. And I was like, I'm just going to talk about this on Instagram because why not? Like, I wanted to tell everyone. I wrote an article for my speech pathology national magazine. We have like a national association. So that made it out to like 200,000 SLPs, which is a really big deal because, again, we are the professionals who are dealing with people with swallowing and speaking issues, which can both happen after Botox. And I've heard from SLPs around the country that are like, oh my gosh, I read your article. I'm going to start asking all of my patients, have you had Botox done in the past such and such months? Because a lot of our patients are getting it for medical reasons like migraines, muscle spasms, TMJ pain, hypersalivation. They're coming up with new reasons to use this drug every
New
day,
reasons
right?
every day.
And what I realized is, oh my gosh, my profession needs to know about this, because we can catch this if we're asking that screening question. Have you had Botox in the past couple weeks, before this started, before your swallowing issues started? Maybe we can be the profession that's like, hey, you should look into side effects of Botox, because a lot of times these neurologists are not telling patients the potential side effects. It blows my mind. I hear from people all the time who get Botox for medical purposes and were never, ever, ever given proper informed consent. They're not shown the black box warning that says that the toxin can spread. They're told like, oh, here's some side effects, but they probably won't happen to you, and they'll go away in a few months. Well, they
Wow.
don't always.
This makes me think of those commercials where it's like the salsa dancing with like possible side effects include like stroke, death, like mass grandeur of violence. You know what I'm saying? Like all these crazy side
Yes.
effects while they're like dancing and like a
Yes.
little classes,
Well,
cooking classes.
yes, and if you watch the Botox commercial, it literally says seek medical care if you're having trouble swallowing, speaking, or breathing. And I'm like, oh, really? We should seek medical care so that we can be gaslit by every
Mm-hmm.
doctor we interact with, denied antitoxin, told we're crazy, sent home on Ativan, sent home on benzos. That's another thing that they do to all of us because our vagus nerves are severely disrupted. And unfortunately, benzodiazepines are the only medication that does help us and
Wow.
doesn't make our symptoms worse because it increases GABA. That's another really sad reality that people, don't want to talk about, is that a lot of people in this community end up on long-term benzodiazepines because it's literally the only thing that can help us.
That's so sad.
SSRIs make everything worse because
Mm-hmm.
they like disrupt even more neurotransmitters, and it, for whatever reason, it just doesn't go together with botulism. But some people try alternative healing modalities like low dose naltrexone, red light therapy. There's a gal in our group who tried liquid ozone, I think it's called,
Mm-hmm.
IV ozone. So people are having to find their own solutions because no Western doctors are trained in even recognizing these symptoms, right? They're like,
Yeah.
I don't know what's wrong with you, let alone helping us manage these symptoms until our body heals as best as it can.
Yeah, it's the Wild
Um,
West out there. I'd be curious to see for
it
people with
is.
vagus nerve disruption to try. Have you heard of pulsetto? You like wear it here on your neck and it like sends those pulses to your vagus nerve.
So here's the hard thing about botulism. Nerve stimulation and anything that can vibrate or massage actually can cause a worsening of symptoms for
Oh my
us.
gosh.
And I know, and they think the reason that is because this toxin can actually be stored in our nerve cells for over a year and we can potentially knock it loose. So we actually say, like, tell people don't do those. And I'm
Oh
not
my
saying
gosh.
that those are good for people who don't have botulinum toxin in their nerve cells, but unfortunately, like vibratory tools, gua sha, things like this can actually spread the toxin, anything that can potentially disrupt your nerve cells. So even like acupuncture and chiropractor, a lot of times people have reactions, like bad reactions and a
And then they blame
worsening
the
of symptoms.
acupuncturist, right? And they blame the chiropractor. They blame the lymphatic
Well,
masseuse.
maybe that's, yeah, I mean, that's true. If someone didn't know they were having Botox side effects and they did that, yeah, then they probably would without realizing, like, no, it's actually the toxin that's spreading
Yeah.
further
This is
in your
really
body.
important too. I feel like a lot of girls, I know a lot of girls who get Botox and filler and they do gua sha and they do all these things, can, even if you, let's say you don't have botulism, like you don't have any symptoms, could this trigger a symptom if you're like,
Yes,
okay,
yes. There are gals in the group. There's a really big influencer on social media named Jamie McGuire. She's gorgeous, gorgeous lady, inside and out. And she's all carnivore like us too. Or
love
she
that.
she like she loves a good steak. Um, she got toxin spread because of doing gua sha, or that's what she thinks,
Yeah.
right? Like she'd been doing Botox for 10 years, and then she one day went home and gua sha'd the crap out of her face, and guess what? Had all these, had not severe, but pretty moderate botulism. She's wonderful because she speaks out about it now. She's super anti-Botox, and because she lived through hell, she lived through a
Yeah.
nightmare, and when you live through this, you do not go back to Botox. Like
Right.
you do not take the chance. You try to warn as many other people as possible because you're like, trust me, you don't want this nightmare to happen to you.
Yeah.
Um, and that's what I do. I'm just like, I went gung ho because I was like, oh my gosh, I have to tell every person I know.
Yeah.
I told all of my friends. I literally tell every patient I meet, because I'm thankfully back at work now. And I tell every single person I meet because you never know who's considering it for their migraines or for
Mm-hmm.
anything, right?
Yeah.
If I
What
had
about,
heard one story like mine, I never would have taken the risk.
yeah, and it's so important that you're sharing this because I feel like, I mean, not that I would wish this upon you in order to for this journey, right? But at the very least, like a silver lining when you do go through something horrific is you can
Yeah.
help other people. And
Yes.
also, whether it's somebody who's considering Botox or somebody who might be 18 years old thinking they're going to get preventative Botox someday. That was me when I was younger, before I really started going down my health journey and finding frownies and all these things, I always thought I would get Botox someday. I always would say, yeah, I'll
Wow.
get Botox someday. And then thank goodness I got
Thank
sick
God.
in other ways. You know, my thyroid had
Mm.
issues. I had a lot of other health issues, but it took me down this rabbit hole, right? And I think like a lot of other
Yes.
people during COVID, I was in college and it took me down a rabbit hole that led through so many open doors. And
Yeah.
that's what really made me anti-Botox, was just opening a health door. But I'm one of the lucky ones. You know, I didn't
Yes.
start. But how many women,
Yes.
whether they're considering or they're getting it or they have no idea what's going on, all they know is they feel horrible all of a sudden, you get to be kind of a beacon for them and help them through that. And so I think that, you know, I think it's really commendable and really awesome that regardless of everything that's happened, you're also using that to put good in the world and to help other people. And I think that's the best thing that you can do. So
Yeah.
with all this sharing, have you faced a lot of backlash from mainstream media or other doctors or practitioners?
No, I'm not big, girl. I'm not big. I don't want to be big on social media, by the way.
That's fair.
I get enough, people contacting me with botulism to keep me
Yeah.
busy all the time. Because of course I still have a full-time job. If it got to the point where my books got more popular and more people started reading them, I'm sure I'd hear from some people who were dissenting. But, what you have to remember is those people have a financial interest at stake. Like
Always.
the people that are talking, trying to discredit what I say, which doesn't happen often at all because I always use facts and I can always back them up. And I make sure I don't exaggerate things. Sometimes I do that for humor, of course, when I'm like exaggerating Botox
This
injectors.
hyperbolic though. It's
Yeah.
satire. Yeah.
People understand that. But what I mean is like, I don't exaggerate anything about botulism. So, and I do that purposefully so that people can't come back and say, what are you talking about? This didn't happen or that didn't happen.
Yeah.
But the people who do are almost always injectors. And of course, this is their livelihood.
Mm-hmm.
This is what they've chosen as a career. Imagine if someone told you all of a sudden, Delaney, every single podcast you do, you're killing 10 people in the world, or whatever, right? Like you'd have a serious ethical quandary. And it's one that not a lot of people are willing to look in the mirror and really sit with.
Very true.
Because they're making bank. They're making so much money. It's like $400 for 5 minutes of work,
right? And they're preying off of insecure women, and there's no shortage of insecure women out there, and I guess men too. It's becoming more common for men too, but really women, right? Like they are literally profiting off of women who don't feel beautiful enough, which I think this is funny because nowadays, okay, we have microneedling, we have lymphatic drainage, we have frownies, laser. There are so many options at every price point, from a $25 box of frownies to a $1,500 laser. And I've done all of those things. Like I'll be transparent. I've done microneedling, I've done Fatana laser, I do frownies. There are so many options that get you. I mean, I like to think I have the same results as Botox. I like to think that people get confused all the time. You don't need Botox to get Botox results if you want that frozen forehead and youthful skin. You just don't need it anymore. It's 2025.
It's 2025, girl. That's what I say. That's what I say on every podcast. I'm like, y'all, we don't have to poison ourselves anymore. Like that's something they did in the early 2000s before we had all this other technology.
Yeah.
And you're right. Microneedling is the bomb. I love microneedling, you guys. It's great. I haven't gone back to do it professionally because remember when I mentioned the vibration, I'm a little bit worried that, I might have a reaction to it. But right now I do an at-home one that's not quite as deep. Unfortunately, but I think once I'm a couple years out, I'll go back for professional microneedling. But the frownies, the face tape, the facial cupping, just things that actually make your skin healthier and literally not poisoned. I mean, the thing about Botox, if you look at someone who has done Botox for a long time, they do not look good. Their skin gets thin. It often gets kind of like a grayish pallor to it. Dark circles are very common for people who do Botox a lot. This is blocking like blood flow to your skin. So, you're just not going to get the same like thickness. I don't know. I don't know if you've ever seen someone who, in real life who, not a celebrity, but, someone in real life and really looked at their skin up close. It doesn't look good.
Right.
After years of Botox.
Yeah. And that's the issue though, when they start, let's say, I know a lot of girls who start at 24, 25. It looks really good. You know what I'm saying? It looks really good though at that point. But then it's the more you keep going. And I think the problem is they get hooked because it looks so good right away. And then
Instant results.
yeah,
Instant results.
exactly. But I'm like, you literally don't need it. And honestly, things like facial cupping, red light therapy, all these things make your face gorgeous. They make you
Yes.
glow. They're good for acne. They just really snatch, they lift. I mean,
Yeah.
they have more results other than just freezing, which is really, I think,
And
better because I don't want to just be frozen.
exactly. And you get to keep your hair. So if
Mhm.
there's ladies out there listening, I literally lost half of my hair from 12 effing units once. Like I can't cuss on this podcast, but I want to. Okay. I was so pissed. I was like, and of course, things could have been so much worse, Delaney. I could have had more breathing issues, all these things, right? So I really need to look at the silver linings here. But I want women to know, don't mess around with your hair. Okay.
Yeah.
Like your hair is your crown. Like our hair is everything to us. Well, it was to me. I
I
was
get
like,
it.
all my silvers.
Right.
But it thinned out so much. And it also made me realize, oh my gosh, this is why, maybe a lot of people experience hair loss. Like
Yeah.
if I had never put two and two together, how much hair would I have ended up losing? Thankfully, I started out thick, so it doesn't look terrible.
No, not at all.
But I'm looking at yours with a ton of envy. You have gorgeous ginger locks. Like,
Thank you.
is that your natural color?
Yeah.
I'm going to kill you. Oh my God.
Thank you.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. And you know what's
It's
so funny is
beautiful.
I dyed it for years when I was like 20 years old. Like 19, 20, 21. I bleached it. I went blonde.
What?
And then,
No.
every girl and I think growing up, having something so different and unique, I always hated that it was different and I wanted to be like
Oh
all
my
the other
gosh.
girls. And then one day I woke
No.
up and my frontal lobe developed and I was like, why am I paying money
Why?
to make my hair look like everyone else when I could just have it be different? And so then I stopped dyeing it years ago. Thank you. I've grown to really love it and really realize that it's the unique things are cool in life, but I think it took me a long journey to get here for sure.
Yeah, that's how I felt about my silvers too. Like I really fell in love with my silver hair because I started going silver pretty early, like 19. And I dyed it for so many years. And then I was like, why am I pouring cancer on my head?
Literally.
Why am I doing this? And then what you do is you have to like acclimate. And it's the same thing, honestly, with real faces. Get off of the social media feeds that show you perfect faces because that's
filters
not
on.
real life. Exactly. Because that's not real life. Acclimate to real faces in real life. Same with hair. Like I started following all these silver hair influencers and I was like, silver is beautiful. Like, why have we been sold this lie that we have to pour cancer on our head every 4 weeks?
Yeah.
Like these silver hairs are gorgeous in the sun. They shimmer. Like I love them.
Me too.
But it's the same with faces. Like learn to love the lines. They are going to come. They just are. Like, it's okay. You're still going to be drop dead gorgeous. Lines are not what make people not look good. You know what I mean? Like you have to get out of that kind of brainwashing that happens on social media. It happened to me too. That's probably why I tried Botox, is because I got an Instagram to look at silver hair ladies and started seeing all these perfectly smooth faces. And I was like, oh, should I look like that? You start
1000%.
to, you get desensitized to it. So I tell people, get off of the feeds, like follow the people that have real moving faces that are maybe, a few years older than you too. Like sometimes I just follow people that are older than me because I'm like, oh, okay, I look better than that. No, I'm just kidding. My skin's not there yet. So you can follow me, Delaney, and you're going to be like, oh, I look great compared to her.
No, you look great. And I think it's amazing though, interviewing you now in this space of like, you're kind of on the other side of the healing journey too. And you look healthy and you seem happy. And I think that's important too for the women who might have just started to see that there is a way out.
Yes.
And whatever that looks like, right? For some people, there might be some lifelong struggles, but it's not a situation where they will always feel as horrible as they feel when it starts. And that's important.
Yes. And that's why I myself host a podcast now. It's nothing fancy. I don't even have theme music because I couldn't take the time to figure that out. But I interview women and men who have been through this. Incredible. And it's called Botox Injury Stories. And it's because I want the world to hear these stories, and thankfully many people do heal. And those are good stories. You talk to women who are 3 years out and they're like, I thought I was never going to heal. And I did. And, I'm at a point, maybe you're never going to be the person you were before the poisoning. That's just like a fact.
Yeah.
I'm probably never going to be that same exact Megan, but I have come so far to the point where I'm very functional, can laugh and joke about things. And you do not forget that. And you do not forget to feel the gratitude of like, holy shiz, I could have died. I mean, potentially I could have. I didn't get enough
Yeah.
to the point where I could have, but a lot of these people came very close to death
Yeah.
and made it through. So I want people to hear that message too. And that's why I do the podcast that I do.
That's beautiful. Okay, and so I just have to like to wrap up the hair saga. How is your hair now? Is it back to
Awful.
normal? I mean, will it
No.
ever go back to normal?
Oh my God, it's so bad. You can't see. So, from everything I've read in these support groups, it does get back and it does get thicker. It just takes like about 2 to 3 years.
Mm,
So I was lucky. I started out with a lot of hair. I mostly lost hair in the front, which is hard.
yeah.
It's just really thin up front. I have a short cut, obviously, and it's very frizzy and gross, but I just do the best I can. I'm a lot more than my hair, so I
That's
just got to keep
true.
that in mind.
And you know what?
Oh my
The
gosh.
bob is really in right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
So
at least, it's trendy. Like I keep seeing like the long bob everywhere I go, and I'm like, wait, do
don't
I want
cut
to
your
try?
hair though. Do not cut your hair. Yours is
Thank you.
gorgeous.
Thank you. You know
That's
what's so
right.
funny is I was considering cutting my hair in like a week or two.
No, don't.
Thank you.
I should have never cut my hair. What happened was all of it was coming out. So I cut it into like this pixie cut, which I never should have done. I was crazy. But I used to have like shoulder length hair. So I'm
Mhm.
just regrowing it back out. And I mostly try to just wear it back when it's not freshly washed, just so that I don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
Because it is traumatic. It's very traumatic to lose your hair as a woman. So any women who have lost hair out there, I hear you, I see you, I feel it. Like it
Yeah.
is one of the most traumatic things we can go through. So I do my best to just, focus on the positive, what has improved, what's going to continue to improve. And then I just wear it back in a ponytail so I don't have to think about
Which is
it.
very cute. It's really cute. And
Yeah.
so, okay, one thing that I have on the notes that I really did want to ask you, and I don't want to like totally just shift gears, but I was really
That's okay.
curious about this. On your Instagram, I've seen there's been a little bit of content about the conversation around Botox treating depression. What's the
Oh
deal with
my
that?
God. Yeah. Who knows? No, I'm kidding. Well, what the industry is trying to say is that, oh, this is going to be the next big use for Botox because,
Mm,
your forehead is frozen, so you're not making frowns or you're not, furrowing your brow, and that's called the facial feedback hypothesis, and it's going to make you happy because you're not making angry faces anymore. And it's kind of like, okay, show me the evidence.
yeah.
They all of these studies are industry funded. It's essentially just them trying to come up with a new use for Botox. They are also the woman who pioneered cosmetic use of Botox, Jean Carruthers. She she was caught on video. I don't know if she meant to do this or not. She's bizarre. She's a bizarre woman. She was on video last year saying that, oh, it's really great. We know now that Botox can go back into the brain, hop back along nerve cells, retrograde axonal transport is what it's called. And, it just shuts off functioning in the inferior temporal gyrus, just like a part of your brain back here. And I'm just thinking like, did you mean to say that, lady? And she goes, yeah, it's going to be great for depression because, that's the area of the brain where we deal with difficult emotions. And I'm looking this up online and I'm just like, this woman has no idea what she's talking about. She's not a
Yeah.
neurologist. She just admitted that they do know Botox can get back into the brain, which they do.
And it's not going to just move to one little spot. And also difficult
No,
emotions are important. You can't just have dopamine highs all the time. That is so
no.
bad for
Well,
you.
and that's the ironic part is Botox can block dopamine. So I don't even know what these people think they're talking about.
That's
You look at
crazy.
injectors, I know. You look at injectors and they'll try to say like, "Oh, you won't be depressed because your face will look so good. So you won't be depressed anymore." It's like, "Okay, that can maybe that does help some people, but that's not that doesn't mean we get Botox to cure our depression. We
Mhm.
need to be getting to the root cause of our depression. And why is it that a smooth
Yeah.
forehead would make you, why would lines on your forehead make you depressed? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, being hot doesn't solve everything, sorry.
No, or anything.
No,
You get more followers.
it's not it.
My gay friend was like, Megan, you need to post more topless photos if you want. He's like, that's what I do.
That's so
And I was
funny.
like, okay,
Like, I'll
maybe
just get flagged.
I'll put my face on like a hot body like yours,
Oh
Delaney.
my gosh, you're so cute.
No, I'm
It's
kidding.
so funny.
I always joke because I'm like, I don't want more followers because I'm kind of like friends with a lot of my main followers
Yeah.
who, I like message with a lot of them, and it's a lot of us botulism ladies, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm just laughing at injectors. So I kind of like this little community I've created.
Yeah.
So,
It's
and
quality.
I of course have injector Shayna. You can't forget about her. She's my alter ego
Love.
Toxin injector, who
So
is just like a
funny.
total California ditz. But yeah, that's that's basically my story and where I'm at today, and just trying to spread awareness through the books, through the podcast, through my Instagram, and also the Facebook support group, where I really encourage women to go on there and to really see the reality of what's happening when this
Yeah.
drug goes wrong.
Yeah, and we'll link everything. I'll make sure that all
Great.
of your different resources are linked in the show notes because this is so important. Like, I literally want women to hear this and to deep dive on this. Like, I want every
Yes.
woman I know to do that. So before we
Yes.
close out, what is right now? I mean, we've talked about your health journey a lot, but I always
Mhm.
love to ask, what is your health goal right now?
My health goal, well, to grow my hair back. And how I do that, by the way, or what I do is I take a lot of beef organs. So I do take
Love
a lot of
that.
beef pills. I eat a lot of oysters, and I eat beef as much as I can. I'm big on beef. I know you are too.
Oh, heck yeah.
Um, Fish too. Like, I eat a lot of small fish like mackerel and sardines. But I try to get everything through food as much as I can. So, the hair is going to come back, but really just to be the healthiest version of myself. I was incredibly healthy going into it, so I was very lucky. So, yeah, I want that luscious hair back, Delaney.
You'll get it.
Your hair is my health goal.
Thank you. Oh, that's so sweet.
But
You'll
silver. I'm going to be the silver version of you,
Oh, it's
okay?
gonna be gorgeous. I love it. I think that like when women embrace the full silver, I always think it's so
Mhm.
chic. To me, it's
Yes,
like French. You know what I'm saying? I love
totally.
it. I think it's so chic. Okay, Megan, where can people find you? We'll make sure to link everything, but where can they connect with you if they're on their phone right now and they want to just find you?
Yeah, on Instagram, I'm at Botox Truths. And then my website, which is more for general information as well as good information for people who are suffering from this illness, is called iatrogenicbotulism.com. And then all of my books are on Amazon under Megan McCue, MCCUE. And the podcast is called Botox Injury Stories. So I'll send you
Amazing.
all the links to that.
Thank you so
All of
much.
this. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you are considering getting Botox or you've already gotten Botox and you're considering now stopping, make
Shopping.
sure to check out those links, those support groups, her Instagram, podcasts, and books. I'll make sure everything's in the show notes for you guys. I
Great.
loved this episode. I learned so much, and I just think nowadays when cosmetic procedures have gotten out of control and have become kind of the status quo, this conversation is not happening enough, and I want it to happen more. So I really want you to keep doing what you're doing. I love what you're doing, and I think it's just really important work. So thank you so much for sharing this with us today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Delaney.
Of course. Well, you guys, if you love this episode, please make sure to share. Let's get the word out there. Tag Megan, tag myself, and let's get just this message of all the alternatives to Botox and what Botox really does to our bodies out there into the mainstream. I hope you guys loved this episode. And until next time, we will chat soon.